They're like, oh yeah, guy with Pensy steam comes in every once in a while. They're not really much really test LED in the headlight, but we'll take this.
Known quite well by all. She's the regular combination. She's a Wabash cannonball.
Proceed to 15. Hello everybody, this is Pensy Joe back again for another in-depth review video. And this time we're doing something pretty different. We're going ahead in the future and we're looking at the famous, or well, it really is famous, the F40ph locomotive. And I have two of them here. One of them is for Tri-Rail and one of them is for Amtrak. This is the Phase 2 scheme. This has the nickel-plated drive wheels, which is definitely, that tells you that this is a newer model. And then this is the older model with the rather darkened copper brushless looking wheels. And it's also got this light silver bottom chassis piece, which from what I understand, it's not really the most reliable from the Walthers line, and being this early. So, and this is not really accurate, by the way. This was on another locomotive that actually did have the silver bottom, but not on the F40s. The F40s always had a black chassis in trucks. So you're probably wondering, so that's probably why you got one of these. And to answer your question, yes, that is the reason why I got this Amtrak locomotive. I got it for like $60. And it looks like it to be definitely in used condition, but that can always be cleaned up and ready to go to swap shells. And the shells will be swapped on just like that. And I will be doing super detailing on the model, so I'll be using a pin vise such as this with different drill bits to drill in the marker light holes and for the ditch lights in the front of the cab. And I also will be painting probably the cow catcher that came with this is the Amtrak box. This is what the cover looks like. This is a Walthers Trainline. I'm not sure if Walthers does Trainline as much anymore. I haven't really seen a lot about Trainline. I'm pretty sure they do. I just don't look for Trainline models. But now they make the F40s for the Mainline series. They haven't done a proto F40, but they upgrade the F40s to Mainline. Now, you might be wondering, well, why didn't you get a Mainline chassis? Well, the problem with the Mainlines is that they don't have thrust washers inside their gearbox tower that prevents the worm gear from digging into not only the bearings, but also into the gearbox tower itself, because it's plastic. It's a real miss from Walthers on that, and it's really a shame because I would have just probably bought, like, you know, I would have probably just bought one of the Walthers Mainline shells and just put it under here and then call it a day and just add more lighting features on my own. And so this is just one of the more unfortunate things that happen. These guys do not really have problems themselves, although the main lines tend to have the prototypical helical gears and all that stuff. You know, the more better running gears, and the drivetrain is that from proto, like the proto line stuff, which is higher quality. Though these are pretty good already from out of the box. It's just the plastic universal piece, when we open inside, can crack depending on the era, I guess. In terms of longevity, now these are fine the way they are. Honestly, it's, you know, just be aware of that. And if you can do modifications on these to have different drives so that you can run them in multiple applications. And especially, you know, if you're using, let's say, these models to run at a club for a fairground ops where trains have to run 8 to 12 hours a day, not every day, but like maybe for like a day, and then a couple days later again, and then a couple days later again until the end of 3 weeks are up. And you have to do it and hopefully last like a couple of years before you have to overhaul the model. So you might be wondering, most people are not going to do that. That's true. However, it does give you rather an example idea of how sturdy and robust and reliable and dependable these models can be. So I know my club has 2 of these. They do have 2 of these that do run, and they run pretty well, actually. I know that the club also has, not this one, but a club member also has a later version of the 810 with the more aqua-colored top green, which is fine. He has that one decked out, but I'm going to deck out mine and upgrade it to have DCC sound marker lights work on both ends, including the ditch lights. And I'm going to definitely add the details to this as well, so using the pin vise to put the metal details. And obviously I'm going to paint them first orange. I need to get orange paint to paint the details. And I will need to get white paint as well to do the paint work for the snowplow up in the front. And this one's kind of loose. I don't know why. Might as well glue it in later on. And eventually I'll add hoses and whatnot. So this will be a fun project. This is for my tri-rail project that I'm doing. I already have the Rapido, like, regular cars. Not the regular cars, but the tri-rail classic Bombardier cars. And I got this locomotive to run it with it because this is the locomotive that I grew up with. So the tri-rail colors are fairly accurate. The roof may be a little bit less green, like the green on here looks more correct than it is in person. It's a little more like a yellowish in the green in person. The white's correct, the striping's correct. Maybe the top green stripe's a little bit more green as well, rather than like a yellowish kind of green. More so close to this color, or the color that is in person. I'll just take this cow catcher off because it's whatever. So is the front. The front's pretty accurate. There's no ditch lights on these because were ex-Amtrak. So they did have ditch lights in the nose that would flash. And then the rear, same platform, fairly accurate. Gotta drill those marker light holes on each side, and as well drill holes so that I can put in the grab irons and then glue them in place and paint them orange as well. Now the detail on this is rather simple. It's rather most of it is molded plastic. There's maybe some little bit of separately applied plastic right here, but most of this is molded in. I don't even see the bell on here. That's how you know that there's not a lot of detail on this model, which is fine. It's not a huge big deal in my opinion. It's just, it is what it is. Same thing with the later model. It just has, nickel plated wheels. It's got plated wheels on this one, and it got better pickup. And this metal chassis is more reliable than the silver chassis. The Amtrak one looks pretty good as well, to be honest. It has number boards on here. I will have to figure out how to do number boards for the tri-rail one as well. It's only in the front, the number boards, which is fine. And it says Amtrak on a nose. Really neat model. Again, same amount of details as the other tri-rail locomotive. And it comes with cow catchers and separately applied parts that you can glue on and adjust in this model. So that's pretty good. It feels like the gears are pretty good on this, so I don't have to worry about stripped gears or anything like that. Which is good. Hopefully this one's got still a lot of life in it. I got it from trains.com. And this one was pretty much close to brand new when I bought this one. Never opened or something like that, but hey, you can't always trust what you see on the internet. But it ran really good when I did a test run of it a while back, and I did a running session video with this in DC. I don't usually do DC operations, if any at all. So it was a good treat for people to see what future project I'll be working on. And without further ado, since we were looking at the outside and see how crude the details are, we'll open the shells on both of these and take a look on the inside. Alrighty, now we got the shells off. We can take a look at inside the model. You got a simple board in here to do all the right rail and left rail stuff in here. So what I'm probably gonna do is unsolder what I do not need. So I'm already gonna figure that out once I start doing rewiring. Now I'm gonna be taking this shell off and putting it on this shell. So I'm going to be swapping shells is what's going to go on. Now inside we got a nice fat motor in there with some nice big flywheels in there for coasting. And this is the part right here that I'm playing with. That can eventually crack, so be careful when messing around with the drive system on here. Yeah, there we go. There's the crack right there. So, just to let you know, these are kind of weak. So make sure that, you don't run these too hard. It's just one of those things you got to be worried about. Under here, we can't see the other side, but it gives you an idea of what's going on inside here. Now, what I'm going to do is also show this one over here. I'm going to tilt the light this way. You take a look on the inside. This one looks to be in really good shape. There's a little bit of crack right there, which is a shame. So, spare trucks you could probably find for these if you want. It's just, you're just going to have to deal with those unless you can come up with something that can replace these without replacing the trucks, because the trucks are fine. And the gears inside here, it's just that universal gear right here can crack if you're not careful enough. And the plastic's not the strongest, unfortunately. So that's the really only detriment to these models, is really this piece right here. So as long as you keep everything, well protected and lubricated, everything should be fine. And on the inside, it's just rear light and headlight, so when you swap directions, it'll automatically do that. So, pretty cool, pretty simple for the time being in the early 2000s. Same with this guy, although he could be rotated in position better to shine inside and to actually shine at the front of the headlight. So I'll probably pull these out if they're bulbs. I'll probably check to see if they're bulbs first. And if they are, I'll replace them with LEDs and then, stick them back in here so that they can be held right in front. And then I'll do the marker lights in each corner as well. In the top corner, actually, since this is up near the top. I'm not sure if we're going to paint the windows black so you can't see inside. That'd probably be a good idea since, there's no interior inside here. As you can see, it's just empty. So, yeah, there's a lot of room because once you put the shell down, you only get a little bit more after the window. But then again, you got a lot of space to, tape your decoder down up top. And then you can put your keep alive back here or up front. There's a good amount of space inside here to work with. It's not the greatest, but it's pretty good. Same with the other one, nothing really different as well. So that's the interior of these. And then we'll do a quick test drive with them to show you how they run. Alrighty guys, I got the first chassis on the track and I'm going to do a little quick test drive. So I'm going to have the controller here, we're going to start spinning it. We're at 25. Around 30 it starts to move. And if you go back down to try and make it crawl, which you can, look at that crawl. And that's at 20%. So that's pretty good. And I could probably go even slower, but even then, it's pretty close. It's less than 20 right now. So that's pretty cool. And if I swap direction, I can do that. See the bulb right here light up? Pretty cool. So yeah, this is a pretty solid drive system. You just don't want to pull heavy trains with it. But as you can see, it's starting to wiggle in there. Which is not something you really want to see with the drive shaft. But it's pretty quiet, given its age, which I'm pretty happy about. So if you do want to see this kind of thing in operation, they're pretty much very similar, if not the same. Check out the video with the tri-rail locomotive pulling the Rapido tri-rail set. You'll see what they're like in operation. It's pretty neat. Go back and reverse. Nice and smooth. And in the next shot, I'll show you the other locomotive's chassis in operation. Okay, and here's the tri-rail chassis. See how long it takes for this one to start moving. I'm going forward so we don't hit some of the freight cars that are still on the track. Alright, right around just before 30. Fairly quiet as well. A little bit buzzy compared to the other one. And then we'll see the light turn on. Here we go. Obviously, when I get the decoder put in here, the motor control should make it easier for the drivetrain in terms of stress, hopefully. Probably not, but it will help, transition the amount of movement of, the sudden stop and go and sudden torque, the instant torque from the motor, and just make it feel more realistic when it comes to coasting and whatnot to help, reduce the stopping torque force and messing up more of that universal joint piece. But yeah, these run pretty well, these models, given that they're early 2000s Trainline models. These do not have those gearbox tower problems. So we're going to go back to the other chassis and open the worm gear towers. Let's just show you, these are still fairly well made, given their age and what they were used for and for their time. There we go. Okay, sorry about the non-adjustment, but these are really interesting how these gearboxes open. They open sideways, but if you look in here, and I angle this into the light a bit, in between that bearing and that worm gear on each side, there's a thrust washer. Hence why you got that gap in there, which is fantastic. It's on the same thing on both ends. And I'm going to close that up. So, really interesting how this thing closes up. It's just this clamp piece, really small clamp piece like this. And you just put it on top and it's not really hard to open, which is great. Although, whoops, there it goes down there again. Fall out again. There we go. The only downside is that your fluids are going to kind of go through the side, which is kind of strange. But yeah, so that's the one thing that this still has over the Walthers Mainline version. They're basically the same thing. I believe the frame is exactly the same, if not same thickness. But the difference is just that they have a little bit more reliability when it comes to the gearbox tower itself. Yes, the only issue with these is this piece right here. That's the only downside. And to fix that can happen. It's not as easy. And you could probably make your own parts if you know how to sand and do your parts properly. But then you're gonna have to figure out how to cement it down to that metal drive shaft that goes into the gearbox to hold the worm gear and the bearings in place. So that's that for this model, and that's pretty much wraps up really this entire model in itself. I hope you guys enjoyed this rather short, rather small, in-depth review. There wasn't really too much to really work with these. They're really good if you want to do like, if you want cheap, F40s that run fairly reliable. If you want to do tri-rail, these are kind of hard to find, especially the older ones. The older ones are a little bit harder, but once you get them, you can use them and swap them on chassis like this and start working on them. Now, what I'm going to do after this review is I'm going to completely deck this thing out. But really, I'm going to do the lighting first and the electronics first before I start doing the super detailing, which I'll save that for last. And I'll do a separate video for a detailing, a brand new video. Probably maybe even a brand new series to do detailing. Anyways, guys, this is Pensy Joe signing out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye now.
The engine, hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball. Well, the eastern states are dandy, so the western people say. St. Louis to Chicago, Rock Island by the way. From the hills of Minnesota, where the rippling waters fall, no chances can be taken on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland to the hill and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball. Now here's to Daddy Claxton, may his name forever stand, and may he be remembered in the courts throughout the land. When his earthly race is over, let the curtains round him fall. We'll carry him home to victory on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland through the hill and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball.